All right. So, good morning, everybody. All right, I want you to take a look at this picture. And there's some things there. Just, I need you to look at these pictures and answer this question. Is it ever okay for you to take something that is not yours? So you gotta look at this and see if there's anything that is there in that picture that you may have or anything else, and you are going to discuss among yourself really quickly. Why is it good or is it bad to take something that does not belong to you? What kind of issues may bring? All right, I'm gonna give you a couple of minutes to discuss among yourself. Is it okay to steal something that doesn't belong to you? Anything that's there, something that you have, and somebody takes it from you.
Yeah.
Also, what do you think?
It would just be annoying if someone took something off
You be annoyed?
You took my thing.
I feel angry.
Okay, so, Nico, when you share, what would happen if somebody takes something from you? Is it good or bad? How would that make people feel? What is it?
It's bad.
Yeah, people will be mad. Some people will happen. Okay, so what happens when somebody it becomes conflict? What is a conflict? People get mad, right? What is a conflict? Or fighting? Okay, so it wouldn't be good, to do that. So it's not good to take things that don't belong to you. Okay, so we're gonna go over the AKS, what we're gonna learn and the learning target. And the AKS, so can you read the AKS for me? It's on the board. On the board. No, yeah, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Analyze
Continuity.
continuity and change in Africa.
Yes. And explain how the European partition across Africa contributed to the conflict, civil war, and artificial political boundaries in Africa today. Okay, and the learning target, I can explain how European partitioning of Africa contributed to conflict, civil war, and artificial political boundaries in Africa. Okay, so you have an article in front of you. I want you to go over and read the questions that are next to them. Can you read number 1, when it says foreign countries?
Foreign countries were interested in Africa's valuable natural resources.
Madison, read number 2.
Africans help Europeans decide how to participate in the continent.
Louis, read number 3. Jeremiah, read number 4.
They accepted how they were treated.
Madison, read number 5.
Nationalism, United States, Africa, and help them gain their country.
Okay. And number 6 is Africans were prepared to self-govern once they gained their independence. And number 7, artificial boundaries created during the 19th century continue to negatively impact Africa today. So what does it mean, artificial boundaries? What is an artificial boundary? Border, but what is it? Nico, you know what's an artificial boundary?
A boundary that was like set by the people. Or like
Artificial is not real, like it's imaginary. It's like imaginary thing, right? Like a make believe, so they just say boundaries, okay? So we are going to go over this article, and after reading this article, we are going to answer the questions that are there, and then we're going to work on the graph. Okay, so I'm going to do the first one with you. I'm going to go to the first one with you, and then you will continue, and you're going to work with on yourself in the group. So you can choose 2 people, and I will work around you to help you out. So, throughout the opening of the slave trade, you remember the slave trade? You remember what that means?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? The slave trade that people went and they're trading people,
They
slaves.
traded people to be slaves.
Okay, European countries recognize the vast wealth of natural resources in Africa. So the European people went and they noticed that Africa has a lot of natural resources, a lot of good things that they can take advantage of, right? The resulting competition between European powers to claim parts of Africa for themselves became known as the Scramble for Africa. So the Scramble of Africa is like a competition that people are actually they're fighting, or they want a piece of the land. So everybody's going around to see what they can take, what they can grab. The Berlin Conference of the 19th century was a meeting in which European powers divided the continent of Africa among themselves. At the conference, 14 European nations met with no African representation to partition the continent, without considering ethnic or cultural borders that already existed in Africa. The Europeans created artificial political boundaries of their own that will bring together rival tribes and split up ethnic groups that have been unified before. So how do you feel if somebody comes, because we live in Africa, and we all have different cultures, or we all have different, ethnic groups, or we have different religion, or we're in different tribes. How will you feel if some strangers from another country come in and take charge, and take over your land? How do you feel about that? Upset. What else? How do you think they felt? Angry. What else?
Disappointed.
What is it? Yeah, do you think that they received them with happy, oh, welcome? No. Because what was the purpose of them? What was the purpose when they went there? Actually, what was the purpose of the Europeans when they went to Africa? What was the purpose? Take the land. And why did they want to take the land? For the natural resources. Okay. So they divided the continent of Africa among themselves. At the conference, 14 European nations met with no African representation. Remember when they went and they had this meeting and to discuss who's taking what, but they didn't invite the African people? To partition the continent without considering ethnic or cultural borders that existed in Africa. Okay, so that was one thing. They didn't care about the people that were there. They didn't care about the ethnic group or the religions. They just went in and they started mixing everybody together or taking them apart. The Europeans created artificial boundaries of their own that will bring together rival tribes and split of ethnic groups. So just imagine a group of people that don't like each other, all of a sudden they mix together. Enemies, so people don't get along. You know how difficult that is, right? Mm-hmm. When people don't get along, and sometimes an example could be, sometimes you're in a classroom and you say, oh, I don't get along, but that's totally different. But this is more serious because this is a large group of people that have to live with another group of people that they don't like, that they never, they probably don't even speak the same language. They probably don't speak the same language. Or they have their own religion, or even eat their same food. Okay, so the ethnic group that have been unified before, so that means they were never been together. The boundaries were drawn in the desire to profit from African riches, like you said, Kashi. There was no respect for Africa's existing internal boundaries and societies. Therefore, tribal conflict and civil war soon surfaced in Africa once your new boundaries were in place. So take a look at the picture that is there. Next, in your paper that you have, there is a picture. You see the kind of picture? Next one. Okay, what do you think that picture represents? Kaya, what do you think they represent that picture to you? What do you think they're doing?
This one?
Yeah, the one there. Are they eating? Do you think they're eating? Does it look like people are eating? So what do you think?
so
looks-
small?
Yes.
I think the European countries are gonna try to take pieces of Africa.
Yes. Who else has it on?
It's like they're on different places.
Different places to go? Okay, so there's, okay, so she said it looks like they are in different parts, like different places of Africa. So anybody else? March, what does that picture to you look like? What do you think they're doing in the picture? Okay, so you guys were right. For example, that is a map that looks like a picture of Africa, right? So it's a picture of Africa, and there are people sitting there. Do you think the same people there? There's probably people that are from different countries, right? They are all European people, and they're there, and they're looking, and they're divided. So in the picture, it looks like people are divided, that they are splitting. See how the picture looks? So they're all taking a piece of land. So that is what happened when they had the conference, Berlin conference, and they all met. They were discussing what parts of Africa, what am I going to take? Which one do I want? Okay? So, Nico, you are from where were you born? You were born in Canada. Anybody else was born out of the United States? Were you born here? Everybody was born here, right? So, for example, let's say, I live in, I'm from Africa, I'm part of Africa. And these people went in there, all of a sudden it changes my lifestyle, it changes my life, you know? They probably were not having the best of life and certain things, but they had their own country and their own living. So when these people went in there, they changed everything for them, right? They didn't have no rights for anything. They even lost the country, you know, everything. So that would not make them happy, right? So going back to where people take something that does not belong to you, what can that conflict happen? It could be what? Somebody said before, you said a fight, right? You mentioned something. So a conflict, right? So everybody's gonna start fighting each other. Okay, so that's one of the things that will happen, in Africa. So the Europeans created artificial political boundaries, you know, because you know what politics is, right? Of their own. But they created their own laws, their own government, their own beliefs. That could bring together tribes and split ethnic groups that they've been unified before. The boundaries were drawn in the desire to profit of Africa's riches. So we already know, what were they looking for? What were they looking for? What was the purpose? Jeremiah, what was the purpose of the Europeans going to Africa? What was the purpose? They partitioned, but why did they partition their country? So they all wanted land, but what was the purpose? What is it that they... Yeah, so they did have like the natural resources. So they were looking to see, everybody had a share, everybody should go park to see what they can get. So throughout the colonization, many Europeans treated native Africans cruelly, and tried to impose or force their own way of life on them. So imagine, you come from a country or you live in a place and these strangers come in and they're telling you how to change your lifestyle, you know, the way you live. They were paying no attention to African customs and beliefs. And decades of political unrest follow modern African nations have difficulty establishing stable governments. So we talked about nationalism. Anybody remembers what the meaning of nationalism is? Nationalism is like pride, stuff of pride, right? So and the desire of freedom from foreign rule swell across Africa. African nations began to win their independence, whether peacefully or violently. However, once African countries gained independence, few of them were prepared to self-government. So they were not really, once they became, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to rule, how to run the country. So, while later experiencing governing or solving conflicts between ethnic and political groups, many of the governments used military force as a way to solve problems. Conflict overwhelmed many of the new governments and remains an ongoing problem in several African nations today. So, I need you to look at now you're gonna take a small group, about 2 and 2 people can work together. And you are going to look at the question again. You're gonna read the question, and you're gonna go back to the reading. And it tells you right there. Number 2, for example, it says, number 1 was already answered for you, okay? You have number 2, Number 1 says, for example, foreign countries were interested in Africa's valuable natural resources, okay? Africans help decide how to partition the continent. So I want you to look, and you're going to write something from where it says some Europeans help Europeans decide how to partition. You're going to look into there and find the answer for that. Okay, I'm going to give you a few minutes. So what evidence do you have? For example, you're going to look and you're going to see one of the sentences that may be wrong there. I say foreign countries were interested in Africa's valuable natural resources. So if you look up, it's going to tell you what were they looking for at the meeting and what were they. All right. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to work and answer that before we go to the graph. You just have to look for the evidence of that question that it says there. What were they looking for? It should say it there. Okay, so all right, so how do you answer this? How is it that you answer this? So where, can you show me where you found this? You gotta read and you can find something that you can put there. So let's see. Wait. Which one? Is it opening? Yes. Perfect. Very good. Okay? And let's see. Makaya. Can you just do 1, 2, and 3 for me? Just answer just the 3. Okay, you don't have to answer the whole thing. And you answer also the first 3. The first 3 questions, that's what you look at it. And it says African help decide how to partition, how Africans help Europeans decide how to partition the continent. The partitioning, that is not true, so we're gonna find out. The partition of Africa led to ethnic, so you're gonna find out where does it say that, where in which paragraph mentions that, and what happened.
He's a what?
Everyone okay? Yep. You have not done anything wrong.
You want to get me
Is that
wrong?
how you did it?
Did he say
How do you
Getting me
This whole
Yes, you are. Like you're.
I did.
Guys,
Yes, you are. There.
okay.
Must showing. You don't even have a
Alright, so, how many of you are doing this? How many of you are?
I did.
I'm not sure.
Yes.
All you gotta do is this.
Okay, so, now, listen up. Why are we making noise? Okay, so now we're gonna look at the graph. Everybody has the graph? So, in the graph that you have, it says Africa history, somebody wanted but so. So these are the directions, if you see them on the top, it says the direction, the somebody category has already been completed. As you complete this agreement, think from the somebody's perspective of the event. In the wanted category, report what each country, group, person hoped to achieve during the conflict, what do they want. In the but category, report things that happen to block the goals of the country group and what is the problem. Okay, so record the outcome. So, for example, we have the European countries. Why did they want it? What were they looking for? We discussed that before. What is it that they were looking for? Yes. So that is what you're going to write. Okay? Okay, you with me? Okay, you're not using the phone group right now. We're answering. We're already going through this. Alright? So again, the somebody, the page says somebody, and it says European countries, and then in the bottom it says Africans, right? And it says wanted, but so. So we're gonna see what was it that the European countries wanted, and then but what happened after that. And then in the but, it says, record things that happened to block their goals of the country's group, person, and what was the problem. All right, so remember, and then the Africans. What is it that the Africans wanted? Well, what happened? So what happened after that? So it's basically the same
Wait,
thing.
what are we supposed to put right?
Hold on. Just give me a second. So basically, you're gonna go, oh, it's the same thing we read. It's basically, you already know what they wanted, you know, but what did they do to get it? What did happen? What happens for them? What did they have to do? So what happens after that? And same as the Africans. What did the Africans wanted? Did they want freedom? Did they want to be treated fair?
Fair.
And but then what happened? They took what? So what happened after that? So it's right there. It tells you in each paragraph, you gotta go and you gotta answer here. Anybody has any questions? Anybody understand? You do? You do? Everybody?
Where we got it right?
Hold on. Okay, so right here, foreign countries were interested, what were they interested in? Resources, natural resources. African help European help. The partitioning of Africa. Yeah. Okay, let's see, get off that. We're not using this, we're not using Chromebook, so it should not be open. We are going to look at this. Okay, you guys, okay, so for you guys, just answer the first 2-3 questions there, and then during the graph, just do at least 3, the first 3. Okay, you don't have to do the whole thing right now. All right? So let's see, let me help you out because some of you will be all over the Okay, so if you're in this page, you need a pencil. Okay, so you're gonna think about what was it that the European countries wanted? What were they looking for? What is it they wanted? Yes. So that's what you're gonna write. So then what happened? Yes. Very, very good. Proud of you. And then what happened? And then so it's right there. Okay? Let's go.
Okay, this is so easy. If I play games, I expect you do only this.
No, you're gonna do the whole thing. What? No, there's only two. There's one here and there's one here. Okay? So there's only two questions. Europeans and Africans. And it's asking you exactly right here. Look. The word so means report the outcome. What happened on the conflict? So you're gonna tell me. Did they took the land? Did they divided people? Okay? So look, you have to look at the readings. Go back to the readings. Okay, how many of you, so many of you completed the first page was completed, everybody? You haven't done the first page? Okay, maybe, okay, this is what I want you to do. Okay, so, you're going to answer this. Alright, so you have to do this, wait, all you gotta do, what is it that they wanted? You go on the reading, what was they looking for? What do they have? They have a resource. But what happened? What did they have to do? What and they took, right? Same as the African, what did the African want? But what happened? They were divided. Yeah, okay? Right.
It was replaced.
Alright. Okay, how many of you understood? How many of you understood follow the reading? Okay, you can follow the reading, right? Okay, so foreign countries were interested in African valuable resources. So you just have to add a little bit evidence from the text. So you look at the text and you already know that they were looking for the natural resources. We say it right there.
Okay, I got it.
So if we look at the word nationalism on the paper, on the reading, it says nationalism and the desire for freedom from foreign rule swell across Africa. And you underline it. Did that happen? So it did, because African nations began to win their independence, whether peacefully or violently. Okay? So they were actually starting that the pride of nationalism, the fact that they wanted the land back, they were able to fight. Yes, sir. Okay, let me see. All right, let's see. Thank you. Okay, so this is going to be graded. Make sure, okay, good. You have your name on this? All right, can you do the other one? So you already know. So, all right. So let's go. Let's summarize this. How did today activating strategy relate to our learning today? So how would you compare? Remember we saw the picture of people, of things that people could take. So how can you relate to the learning of today? So somebody took candy, things that belong to you, people are not happy. Somebody takes something that somebody takes my phone, or somebody takes my Takis that I like to eat, and I will be very upset, right? But there are other things that people take that actually can create violence and fights. So Nico, what do you think you can relate to those things that you saw Bastille and to the message today?
Well, the Europeans stole
So what?
land from Africa. But I could also relate whenever if my brother takes my stuff.
So, what, in comparison to Africa, what did they do? What was similar to that? They went where? They took land from Africa.
Land, they partitioned the land.
So they took things that did not belong to them, right? And that was the issue that created conflict and war. Now, thank you. Well done. All right. So how many of you have completed the assignment or you working on it? All right. Okay. So tomorrow we are going to continue the lesson on this the partitioning. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.